Everyone. I call this August 13th, 2026 Water and Sewer Advisory Committee meeting to order. Wally, do we have a quorum? You? Has everyone had a chance to review the agenda? Any questions, comments? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and the agenda has been adopted. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting? Any corrections, omissions? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay, I make a motion we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you for your motion. Second. All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the motion carries and the minutes have been approved. So, Wally, I guess, do we move into elections?
Yes, sir. Officer elections.
Well, do I have any nominations?
I suggest, just because I've been here since Jesus walked in this room, that is there anybody who doesn't want it? I mean, that's generally the best thing to say is who will not accept it so that we can weed them out and move on to those that will.
Well, there's nobody here to speak but me,
I know.
so I'm going to say I won't accept it.
That's what I'm saying. Randy, would you accept nomination to be chairman?
Reluctantly.
No pressure in.
I mean, I'm just saying because we go through this every time.
I mean, normally we do elect someone that's not here.
That's what I'm leading to. They can't say no, but one's here can.
Who's not?
But I think David doesn't mind. I think is what he's saying.
Oh, no, I'm not advocating at all.
Have you done it?
Yes, I've done
Oh, he has a couple times, yeah. And he did a fine job.
They want here.
Well, I'm not.
So, Mr. Simondaris is not eligible as chair.
Right.
And Mr. Cook is not eligible as vice chair.
But now I did hear you say that if we talked to the council, that we could extend that.
It's a council policy, not a
It's a council
staff
policy, so if the council was so mean fit that they could extend it for 5 years, I'd vote for it.
So,
Wait, no, I'm not.
and then, of course, everybody else is eligible. So, you have
That would be Ryan.
Mr. Schiffelbaum and Mr. McCracken also are eligible.
Back.
Yes, sir.
Can he do it?
He is eligible, yes,
Oh, I
sir.
thought you said he wasn't.
No, he's eligible. He's just not here this evening. He was out of town, and Mr. McCracken was stuck at work. So,
Well, then I make a motion that Fernando is the new chairman, if he's eligible. That's my recommendation.
And I'll make a motion that Ryan's the vice chairman.
I'll second both of those.
And I second that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
See how easy that was?
Yeah,
That's what happens when you don't show up.
you do need to vote on it, though.
Do we need to carry it to the next?
No, you can just vote on it, and then I would ask that you include in the motion that it's effective next meeting, since neither of those are here tonight.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Well, motion we vote on it?
Well, a motion for our nominations, right?
Yes.
And then we'd have to say it's effective next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I make a motion that we vote Fernando in as chairman.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'll make a motion that Ryan Kraken is our vice chairman, and that will be installed at the next meeting.
And I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
We'll inform them. Thank you.
And then Wally, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
So tonight we have two items for you. Neither require action. These are updates, and Michael actually has the privilege of presenting both of these because he was involved intimately with both of these. And the lead service line update is one to tell you where we stand, because we do have a clock that's ticking, and Michael will discuss that. And we have a method moving forward, which was approved as part of our budget. And then we've finally completed and removed the bypass line from 24, so Michael's got some discussion on that. So with that.
Here we go. All right, good evening, everybody. How are we?
Good.
Good. Mr. Councilman, thank you for having me, and Mr. Chairman, who's no longer here, thank you for having me. Okay, so just going to service line, I just wanted to hit the recap in case everybody forgot. What does your typical service line look like? You see, obviously, coming water main, water service line coming to the meter, and then from the meter to the house. So all service lines, but two separate areas of responsibility there. Obviously, the city of Jacksonville, we own it up to the meter. And then after that, it belongs to the property owner. All right, and that's pretty standard across the board everywhere you go, and we follow that. Now, with this legislation that's come out, it has been put on the municipalities, or at least the owners of the water system, to check both sides of the line, which is what we've been doing. So moving forward with that. The lead and copper rule, just going through, those were implemented in 91. We all know that we stopped using lead pipes in 87, I believe, 1987. And, we wanted to reduce the amount of lead exposure throughout water. What causes the lead? It's not so much the lead pipe, it's the degrading of that lead pipe with chemicals and everything else and corrosion, and that breaks down the lead, which then introduces it into the water. So new EPA revision came out in 2022, which is the lead and copper rule. And they wanted an inventory, the LCRI. So we had to get a full inventory of all service line material on both sides of the meter. We had the inventory was due to the state by October 16th, 2024. And then we had to put out all these notifications to residents and customers on the status of their water lines. What did we do? We implemented a database in 2023, which is accessible through the city website. We have our side that we're looking at, and then we have a resident-facing dashboard for them to track, and they can inquire about their own address and what's going on. We mailed out notices to customers detailing our course of action. We tried to educate them on the lead and copper and galvanized pipe and what all those things actually mean. We've done over 12,000 lines that have been identified through either physical inspection or otherwise were known because they were built after a certain time, and we have record of, in the deed, we have record of what lines and materials were used, right? Or we put it in and we know exactly what's there. We've complied with the inventory and identified an unknown materials that was due. We hit that mark. Once we got there, we were in a pretty good spot because we had no lead service lines discovered at that point, all right? But this is where the work went in after we did that. This is just a kind of an idea looking at that. This is what the dashboard looks like. And you can see over 12,000 lines verified. You'll see the galvanized, the non-lead, and then the unknowns. And we'll get into what we have to do with the unknowns. So the unknown material, this is our this is the ticking clock that Wally's talking about. We have to have this identified and to the feds and the state by 2027, October 2027, all right? It takes a lot of heavy lifting to send all the TJ's guys out who are doing everything to go out there and dig up every line and physically inspect every line. And they've done a lot of that, and they've tried to, obviously we've tried to do those concurrently with projects or anything else, repairs they did. If they're in there, we're checking the line. If we could rule it out, we're checking the line, right? We're doing everything we could do to get through these things, and that's how we made the progress that we've made so far. We have 6,200 lines that remain that require material identification, all right? Challenges with those, it's adverse locations and depth, right? We can only dig down so far with our equipment. And also, like the length, right? And that's the segment distance from the main. If your scope doesn't go that far, you can't rule it out, right? So we have to get down to that point. We have some unknown segments that we can't access because it's so far from the main or our access point, right? We can't see it. And then with some of those, why don't you just dig it up? Well, because they're under hardscape, right? They're under some concrete, many layers of concrete, or they could be on commercial property that's privately owned. So then we have to contact there, we have to dig that up, break through everything. So it's challenging, and it's a heavy lift. It's not something that you can do and say, hey, every Thursday we're going to go out for 4 hours and do this. We'd never get it done. We'd never make the October 2027 deadline. So with that, let me go back real quick. So with this unknown material, everything that we found that was unknown had to be classified as galvanized requiring replacement, right? So the unknown material notification went out. If we had somebody that we, after October 2024, that we had not identified what their line was, notifications went out to those residents, so they know that, with instructions and what the next steps were and what we're going to do. The galvanized steel lines that we found, no lead has been found in any of those galvanized lines, right? Inspections that didn't go all the way to the main, they triggered the galvanized requiring replacement notice, and all those notices were delivered out, again, with the unknown material notices and all that. Rules say that we have to either prove that there's no lead on the 246 galvanized steel lines that we've seen, or the ones that we can go all the way to the main on. We either have to prove that there's no lead there at some point by 2027, or we have to replace it within 10 years. All right, and that's the galvanized lines. Replacement of those lines is really one of the big concerns, because the feds have been putting this out in phases, right? They haven't just given us a clear blueprint from the jump. It's kind of been, all right, you got to do this now. Okay, you got to do this now. And funding for this is a big concern for everybody. The city of Jacksonville, we're kind of like too big to get help, and we're too small to get bailed out. So we have to, look at grants and things that are in there that we could possibly qualify for in our smaller systems, and hopefully we can use those to offset costs that we have to deal with replacing pipe that has to be replaced. And there still has been no guidance on whether or not we're going to have to support the residents in replacing any of their pipe
On their side.
On their side, because obviously we can't just dump that on 76,000 homeowners that may have a problem. Be like, hey, you may have to replace your pipe. Yeah. So we may not have. And here's the other thing: we may not have found any lead in their service line, but we don't know what's inside the house, right? So they could have had if you have a home that's in Northwoods or in downtown, and you had you had some sort of repair work done to your service line in the past, that would have updated that material. But whatever the house was built with probably still remains inside the walls. So,
I'm sorry. Is there a year that normally it does it, like 1980, 1970s?
1987 was the year that we stopped using lead. It was ruled out. You can't use lead in any water systems.
It became law in '86, so I think a lot of the industry had kind of tapered off some, but there's still a lot of lead was limited in size, so you really don't have to worry about anything larger than 2 inch.
Right.
So you're really talking about things smaller than 2 inch, which is why they say service lines.
Right.
And so, but there's a lot of service lines where they used, galvanized or, and galvanized can have lead fittings.
Yes.
Lead soldered fittings. Or they may have used some sort of plastic or something in the yard, but inside the house itself, especially some of those built in the 50s and 60s, they may have had lead or copper plumbing.
Right.
And that becomes an issue for the homeowner, because the challenge with copper, which you can still use copper today, but the challenge with copper is if you have lead that's leached into the water, the copper will absorb it and hold it and release it.
Right.
So that's where copper comes into the rule. Same with the galvanized. It's a soft metal. So again, it can, if it's never been upstream or downstream of lead or around lead, there's really no issue with galvanized. But if it's got lead joints or has been downstream of what we call a lead gooseneck,
right,
which was the connection point between the main and the service, that lead gooseneck in front of a galvanized line can be an issue. So we do know that we have goosenecks in our system because we've replaced some in the past.
But I guess the real question there is, it's not like that's miles of water line that allows that,
That's right.
It's only a gooseneck
Sure.
that's passing on, the particle count probably isn't something of concern, but still, you still have what you're dealing with that you got.
Well, I mean, lead flushes out, right?
Yeah, that's
so
right.
If you had lead and it was breaking off, it was leached into the water, the concern with that is just run your water, right?
Yep.
Let it run and the sediment will come out and
Yes.
everything else. Like Wally said, the copper and, the galvanized material really almost becomes like a combat multiplier for the lead because it now holds it and then slowly releases it. So that's where your problem runs in there. But luckily we haven't had any lead hits.
Yeah.
So we're doing great so far.
Yeah.
But is the connection, where they weld the connection, are most of those lead, even if they have copper pipes?
It can be. It kind of depends on the time period and what that plumber used.
Sure.
Because there's other methods. And there's no way to identify that because you can't really tell.
Right, you'd have to find the connection points that were done.
Dig them up, take them
Dig up the
apart.
whole line, to find that.
And it's really hard, like if you're just doing a surface, if you dig down to a surface line and it's metal, because it's been in the ground for so long, it's really hard to tell what that metal is. You actually have to scratch it off and look at it to determine. And then they actually have test strips where you can touch it and see whether it's lead or contains lead.
Yep.
So it's not, it sounds like you would just dig it up and you can be like, oh yeah, that's definitely lead, but it's not that way.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell what a pipe material is when it's been buried for so long.
Right. And we did put out a lot of education to the residents on self-identifying their own pipes.
Yep.
And, just to see what they're, we kind of give them some guidance. If your house was built after this, you probably have nothing to worry about inside. But if you have some of those older homes that are around here, you could get in there and find some of that solder or whatever else. And we instructed them on where they could get these lead kits and the little test strips and everything. So we've had good feedback from that. People that were concerned, went in there and found some relief that, oh wow, obviously our house has been updated since that time, right? Any questions on any of that? It's kind of a recap, but yep. All right, so what are the next steps? So before we were hoping to get budgeted that we could go out and get a industry contractor. Well, yay, we got approved. So right now we're sitting there, we're ready to publish our RFQ, go out for the bid, and see who's going to come in and do this for us. And so we're going to get that industry contractor for the remaining identification beginning in FY27, which is right now, and knock all that out, and they assure us that we'll be able to make the deadline. They're going to do a combination of, hard digs and repairs that they find. They also have a authorized algorithm that they use where they can kind of go in and put in all this deed work and, the contractor and everything else, and it'll pump out and be like, the chance of that is the lowest percentile. So the EPA will accept that. And then, of course, we're still going to keep the customer dashboard going and push out the customer notification via mail, hard mail, and make sure they get, certified letters. And this contractor that we're looking at will do all that. Because I think Derek's sick of licking envelopes because he did that the last time. So there's a lot. So anyways, so that's where we're at now. Just some things, we want to make sure we maintain transparency through the citizen dashboard and the city website. And you can get on that through the city drinking water spot on the city website. You can see all the connections to the dashboard and everything else. We want to update our records to, aid any future requirements. And that's where I was saying, like, the jury's still out on what we have to do and, what has to be replaced. So we want to make sure when they do come down with that and say, hey, listen, if you had, customers that hit X, Y, and Z, you need to go and replace their line for them and then figure it out on the back end. Or we need you to replace everything from the main to the meter that had this. So if we already have that information in the database, we know exactly where to target and exactly where to hit. And that'll save us a lot of time. And of course, stand by for further guidance on required replacement. And that's, kind of what we've been talking about through the whole thing.
I got a little question on this because I've been hearing this for 2 or 3 years now, and every time we always ask, have you heard anything more whether or not the customer is going to be responsible to replace his lines. And I'm still hearing, and I don't mean this badly, but I'm still hearing the same thing I heard 3 years ago. Where is the holdup on this? Is it the state, the federal?
It's federal requirements. They haven't made
So with the federal, you
decisions.
don't know whether or not they're going to help pay for it or not.
That's right.
They don't know if they're, I think they're, from the conferences that I went to, I think the crux of it is, who do they give the money to? Who do they put the onus on? Do you put the onus on the water system and the municipality and say, go out there, make these repairs, and then we'll refund you on the grant? Or do you put it on the homeowner and say, hey, listen, for this amount of time, we need you to go in and identify your stuff, and then if you pop positive for that, we're going to come in and we're going to do, because there's a lot of paperwork and everything that'll go into that. How much of that would actually get done? So I think that's really just the question, right? Like, who do we put the onus on? Who do we give the money to? And then if it's going to go to the municipality, or even if it's going to go to the resident, what qualifies it, right? Are we just going to blanket it out and say everyone can do it across the entire United States? Because this is a national problem. So it's really, that's the holdup, as I understand it, if that best answers your question.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Follow-up. From what you said up there, the 27th is when you got to have all this information provided to the federals or whoever. Do you know whether at that point there's a time when it's going to have to start taking place? Like, when are you going to have to replace those lines after that
The law
27th?
says 10 years right now.
So you got 10 years after the 27th? Okay.
October 27th, yeah, and lead is the same way.
Right.
That's what the law says, but that doesn't say, where it gets ambiguous is who's responsible. Because Michael's right. You put it on a homeowner, it is highly unlikely it would not get done.
Yeah.
Even if there's money available for it.
Average
So-
homeowner is not qualified to make that happen.
Yeah, that's right. So then you're literally, and that's why the identification piece was put on the purveyors, the water providers, is because they knew the homeowners would never do it. So I think if they're going to require homeowner, like the replacement, then they're going to have to put it on the utility side. Then it becomes, how do you force a utility to, one, how do you force a homeowner to allow a utility to work on private property because we don't have that right, not outright. And then two, how do you force a utility using ratepayer, and in some cases, I doubt very few taxpayer, but ratepayer dollars to improve private property infrastructure? Because that's really what we're talking about behind the meter.
Well, my question, how do you force it for homeowner to make those requirements?
Well, that's the.
So that is the problem.
Question.
So, and remember this too, I mean, this is, when people hear lead, like they hear, oh, you got a lead pipe, the alarms go off, right?
Yeah.
The lead's not the problem, right? It's what you have to put the anti-corrosive in there, the agent that keeps that from happening, right? And when we talk about Flint, Michigan, and we talk about that, the problem was that they wanted to save a few bucks.
Yes.
So they stopped using the proper chemicals, and they knew they had lead because Flint, Michigan was built, forever ago. That's where the problem came in, right?
That's
so, we say you got 10 years, and people are going to be like, well, you found lead. How are you going to let me live with it for 10 years? Well, you're fine because we do it right.
Yeah.
Right. We're testing that. We're always sampling. Our techs are out there. We have great chemists in the city that are out there taking lab samples of drinking water samples, and our drinking water quality is through the roof. So,
But if there was lead in there, you would find it through.
quickly, very
Yes.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, and it's a required, lead and copper rules require sampling. We're on a 3-year cycle. So every 3 years, which I think this year is, and it's not that you can just pick any random home. Like, the home has to be approved by the state for sampling because it has to meet specific parameters. And really, sometimes it's hard to find homes that meet those parameters.
Right.
So, and we keep a bank, like we do have a list of homes, but we keep a bank of extra homes because we have to have homeowner participation and they have to be willing to do it and help us. So it's one of those challenges every system faces, will continue to face, but again, it comes back to, it's really nebulous because the state's taken direction from the federal government, and the federal government has enacted these laws and rules, but without clear defining of responsibility for replacements and those kind of things. So,
Yep.
and then again, we've talked, we talked before about unfunded mandates. So if it becomes a mandate, in some cases, there's grant funds available, but you have, like Michael said, he said it perfectly. We are too big to get assistance and kind of too small to get assistance. So we fall in this middle ground where there's not a lot of money available, because there was money available supposedly to help with identification, and the city didn't qualify. We were denied on every application that we submitted. I think we submitted on 2 or 3, and we weren't. We were too big. We had too many connection points.
Does the lead seep back into the system through like an individual's?
No, it would be, so the way, here's the thing, if you read it's really scary language in the letters that we sent out, because it was EPA required language. But basically what it says is, it says, just flush your lines before you use them. That's what it says. So if you think you have lead in your house, or you think you have a lead service line, you think you have a lead service line, call us, we'll come out and verify. But if you think you have it inside the house, take a shower before you brush your teeth. Run the faucet for a few minutes before you
Glass
drink.
of water. Yeah.
Yes,
Flush the toilet.
It's the simple stuff like that. Just,
Tank back.
you want to get a flush through.
Don't go on a week's vacation and come home and fill up a water glass.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's which I would say you probably shouldn't do that even if you don't have
Yeah.
lead.
Yeah,
Because the water's been sitting in your pipe
Stagnant.
for a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
So, run your washing machine, run your dishwasher, do something, run a faucet. That's my kids know now, when we come home, the first thing they do is walk by the faucets and flip them on.
Yeah.
And if we've been gone for a little while,
Yeah.
and then we walk back by and turn them back off.
Yeah.
So I would say that the one thing I just want to close with is we're all over it. We've met every deadline. We've stayed atop of the situation. TJ's team has been fantastic. He's always trying to get miracles done. It kind of bothered him that we
Had any unknowns.
Wally and I had to kind of put him in a chokehold and
Yeah.
say, "Look, man, you gotta let it go. Let it go. We're gonna give it out." And he was fighting it, but because he loves being able to do it. And we had made some moves. We had gotten 2 temporary positions to come in to aid with this detection. And they were doing that as best they could, but if you're bringing in 2 temp guys that don't know anything, you can't just send them out in the truck.
By themselves.
So you're sending your experienced guys and you're backfilling with these guys, and trying to staff that consistently is always a challenge. Temp workers, they come and go. But we did do that. We made those efforts, and they put a huge dent in it. And we just realized, Wally and I just sat down and said, look, let's just see if we can't write somebody a check and wash our hands of this thing and get it done, instead of stressing TJ out.
Right.
And then we just had to fight TJ. So that was really it.
Especially Michael said it, but, if you think about an older shopping center, the meter in a lot of cases is actually up under the awning out front, which means it's buried in a sidewalk right in front of a business. And in many cases, the asphalt parking lot comes right up to the front of the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess.
So us having our guys right in front of businesses trying to locate that was going to be very problematic. So the idea is bring somebody in that has experience in dealing with this in other locations, and that has gotten predictive modeling. Because if you check a shopping center and you can figure out how to check 2 or 3 out of 10, 12, 15, then they may have a statistically valid model because it was likely that shopping center was developed all at the same time by the same builder and they used the same materials. So there are some, we would love to put our eyes on everything, but there are some that we're just going to have to accept. Now, if you end up finding one that has galvanized or lead, that means you got to do all of them.
Right.
So those are some of the challenges that we want to turn that responsibility over to somebody.
Gotcha.
And then that way, when we're dealing with a property owner and a contractor, we make sure the contractor is responsible for repairing to that, the damage to that property.
Yeah.
So, but it's obviously going to cost us money.
Yes. Well, that's everything does.
Yes.
Any other questions on the lead service line? We're good for now, until we get more updates? All right, moving into the Highway 24 sewer repair, rehab, and go through that. We all know the DOT stormwater box failed and a piece of concrete in that punctured our sewer line, which then had the sewer leaching into the stormwater. That was what started this whole fiasco in December. And you probably remember it was kind of a mess at Christmas. So TJ's guys got in there. They worked 72 hours straight over the weekend. I think they found it on a Friday.
It was a Friday.
And it was freezing and raining, and they were out there 72 hours straight to isolate that leak and clean up the sewage that infiltrated the stormwater line, clean that outfall, and we had to report to the state, we had to report the spill, all the stuff. The biggest problem is that the lines that we're talking about that come off, and I go through this and I'll jump around, but those lines are 50 years old. Right? It's hard to think that 1972 was 50 something years ago, but it was. So, and those lines are old, and they were when the state came in, DOT came in, and they built the bypass. They didn't move our lines. They just put their stuff on top of our stuff and 30 feet down. So we couldn't get to it, right? So that was a big issue. So we had to call in emergency contractors and get in there to get into that, just to close it off and find exactly what was going on. Now our guys, TJ's team's on it. They were watching the meters, seeing the pressure problems. They knew there was an issue, and they were quick to get on it. And like I said, straight through the weekend, freezing rain, shutting it down, and got that leak turned off so we could avoid an NOV and fines and everything else. Again, those lines were deeper than our capability. We really stop at like 5 feet. All right, we don't dig past 5 feet for multiple reasons. And so we have to, once we get over that, we have to get, we can step down and we can bank and step to get down to it, but that hole would have gotten massive, and you'll see why in a little bit. As we got into that, we saw a severe degradation of the existing sewer lines as we got in, and we were checking this, and you got to clean these lines, and you got to camera the line and everything else. And we knew that those lines had to be replaced. They were already in the CIP to get done because we had already done the portion in front of Beirut Memorial where we lined that, and we knew we had to keep going. But this is force main, so that's always a bigger issue, right? So we got in there, saw it was bad, and the decision was made to access emergency funds and rehab the force main lines originating from the Ellis Lift Station all the way to the Onslow Highway 24 intersection. That's a picture of the hole to get down to that sewer line. And you can look at the size of those excavators and just see how far down that went. Some of you all saw it driving by throughout Christmas. And that's a long way down, all right? And remember, that wasn't always there, right? We used to have Lejeune Boulevard, but that just kind of built up and built up and built up as they put the bypass in, and these were, they were in there. So we had to get to them and get them changed out. So we got this fixed. The contractors came in, working side by side with TJ's crew, and they got this thing closed up. So the next thing we had to do to rehab these lines, after we figured out we're going to access emergency funds to get this done, and you can see the bypass line there. 7,800 feet of bypass line had to be laid down before we could even begin. So we had to bypass the force main from Ellis Pump Station all the way down to tie back in to go through the next basin down to the main pump station. So that took a lot of work, as you can imagine. And there's just a kind of an idea what that line looks like. 12-inch and 18-inch line going across has to be fused together, and it's a special kind of, I want to call it a welding process because I'm a welder, but it's a fusion that they do. They fuse these lines together and have to, as you can see, bracket them together and then pressure test them. And we have to flush these lines. So once they get it all up and routed through and out of the way, and they're going through stormwater lines and under the highway, anything they can do to not disrupt traffic, because these were going to be in place for quite some time. So they pushed through. After we did that and we got the lines bypassed and we shut down the force main coming out of Ellis Pump Station, the boys had to go through, clean the lines. There they are with the sucker truck and the jet truck making things happen. And you can see just some of the stuff coming out of there, just all that debris built up over years and years that gets hung up. And as we went through, we found 40 tons of debris that was removed just from the lines. That included rags, one entire manhole cover, pieces of the reinforced concrete pipe, RCP, that had been degraded and broke down. Sometimes I think we brought it to you before where we had cambered some lines and it kind of looks like a sunken ship. You can just see the skeleton of the reinforcement.
Yeah.
So all that concrete had fallen down, large chunks of it that they had pulled out as they flushed these lines and just sucked it all out. A ton of soil dirt, as you can see, that black dirt, that's oil, that's sewage, that's all those things that are in there. It just clumped up and built up in spots. And then, of course, sand, all from, the dirt and the sand all comes from that I&I that we talk about so much, right? So 40 tons just and our crews pretty much did most of that with the help of some contracting trucks and whatever else. But, they pulled all that out and we had to dump it, sort it, and get rid of it. And it's contaminated soil at that point, so we had to make arrangements to get rid of that. And then off it went. So we fixed the hole. Now we bypassed it. We've cleaned the lines. And what are we doing next? We went in and we did the manhole lining. We talked to you guys previously about the manhole lining that we did, and we were doing this project around. TJ loves it. So, if TJ loves it in his manhole, then he's going to keep using it. So we had the opportunity with all these manholes that were in there. I think there were 24 manholes that were somewhere in that area. And some were brick and some were concrete and whatever else, but we knew that those boxes were going to be, compromised. So we had them all done and lined in accordance with the project. So those were all done, and we get something crazy like a 50-year lifespan on those with that 500 mil deep liner that they put in there. Wow. It's great stuff. We popped a few of them open that we did a couple years ago, and they still look beautiful because it just, whatever, things just don't build up on it, and it breaks down. So
How deep are those?
it depends, sir. It varies. Yeah, some go as deep as 15 feet.
Okay.
Do we have any deeper than 15?
Yeah, there were a couple that were 27.
Yeah.
It gets shallower as it comes toward the memorial.
Right.
Okay.
The deepest ones are right there where the force main ties in.
Yeah. So, next step going in there, the cutting of the rings, right? So those rings, those joints that you see hanging down there, we call those rings, but that's the failed joints between the segments, all right? And what happens, as you can see, is it traps debris on the flow, right? So as flow picks up, the toilet paper and the rags and all the things that we're not supposed to flush that don't break down get caught up on these rings, and they just stay there. Especially when the flow is low, they're not getting hit and moved off, so they just build up, and those rings start to come down and sag. So we got these cool little robots that go in there, and they cut all the rings, and these cutter heads go in there and cut all the rings, and we pull all that stuff out. And as we do this new lining process that we've been doing, it negates the need for those joints. I don't know what happened to my T, but it was
So
there.
it basically bridges those joints.
Yes, it does. It turns it into one solid sleeve.
Yep. They basically put a fiberglass-looking liner inside.
So what they do is, and I didn't want to put too many pictures in there because it's just a lot, but you can see in the photo there how smooth that is. So they have these socks, right? And we call them a sock, and the sock has to be customized to the job. So it's like an 18-week lead time to get one of these socks done, excuse me. And they bring those in and they feed the sock all the way through the pipe until the next union that they have to make a turn or whatever they have to do. And then they inflate the sock with cold water. All right, so we flush it, we pressurize it, and they blow the sock up with water. And then once it sticks and it does its thing, they come back through and they cure it with this UV light. Let me get back to this here. They go in there and they're curing it with a UV light that goes in. This little robot guy goes in there and he just shines this light, does the thing, moves through slowly, and it cures it in minutes. I mean, it is fast. And then that liner now becomes super hard, like PVC. And it holds and it gives us, I think, we're, 15 years of life on them?
I think they say that they'll last 50. But,
Yeah, but it buys us time, all right? And again, it makes a smooth pipe, stops the I&I, stops the degradation, eliminates the need for those jointed rings anymore, and we have a nice, smooth, open pipe that we can now run nice, dirty sewage through. So.
Now, if it starts to deteriorate, like we said, 50 years or what, starts to, can you reline it?
No, most of the time what we found, so we did some lining in 2008, I think, and we found a few places where it didn't adhere well or something, so it sagged or it bubbled on the bottom or an offset joint or failure around the pipe happened and broke it. So in most cases, those places you can't just reline.
Right.
That's the problem. So what do you do?
You replace it,
Yeah.
you dig it up, yeah. You dig down and do a point replacement, so you only replace the segment that you have to.
Right.
Next thing we did after they got done with all that, it was time to clean out the wet well. So that is your Ellis pump station, the deep wet well so we all understand the science of a lift station, the pump stations, right? So this is where all that comes into from all your gravity feeds and everything else, lands in here, and then it sits there and then it's pumped up by the pumps, lifted back up through the force mains and go back to a gravity feed through the basin and into the main pump station, or then it takes the 9-mile trek out to LTS. So that's what was sitting in there, and you can see the guy who got that job, very happy. Nice. Excited to be in there. And I think at the end of the day, after the wet well cleaning, I think it was some crazy number.
Yeah, I don't remember
Well
what
above
the total
40
was.
tons. It was well above 40 tons that they pulled of just sediment and buildup that's sitting in the bottom of that thing. So they pulled that out and we got that all cleaned out, and now Ellis Pump Station's back up and running. And there's the super team right there, utilities maintenance. You think of all they do and what we have for pipes in the city. I think we have 600 miles of pipes underground running through.
Between water and sewer.
Yeah, and these guys are on top of all of it. And, we have 40-something lift stations, pump houses. So they are on top of it. And it's not as you can see, it's not a big crew.
Yeah.
So those guys get a lot done. So we appreciate them. Yes, sir.
I know it's a stupid question, I mean, I was looking at a picture a while ago when you were at the Ellis station.
Yes, sir.
Guy was with a shovel. You didn't have to shovel that whole mess out, did you?
They vac a lot.
That's why I said I would think a vacuum would have.
I think he's probably moving it toward the vac, but there are things that,
I feel gooder about him then, because he had to do all that by shovel.
40 tons is a lot.
That's a lot of shoveling.
Yeah, and you can see kind of the hand tools that are in there. I mean, the vacuum can do the heavy lift, but you got to move it out of these crevices and into
Break it up.
Yeah, and it gets hard and
flush it with
calcifies.
water. Yeah, they basically pressure wash it inside.
And I know that another step to this, after you got all that done and the lines were set, they flushed all the lines before we ran it back through. And I think they ran something like 40,000 gallons of chlorinated water through there to clean it all out and push it back down. So Ellis Pump Station, which is, one of our, it does a lot of work. I mean, it's a heavy lifter. And those pipes right there, that's been, that whole service area there has been there for a while. So it's got a whole makeover, got a mommy makeover on the Highway 24 area. So
How often do you clean those out?
They clean, we do grease removal every year. But you're basically, the grease kind of floats on top.
Right.
And the sediment settles out in the bottom. So most of what we do every year is the grease removal on top, because that's where you kind of lose a lot of your capacity. And that grease is really what causes a lot of problems downstream. So we try to get as much sediment as we can when we do the grease removal too, but we hit them every year.
And you're going to find this all the way down the line. I mean, so this is Ellis, right? So everything came in here and settled here. Well, when all this stuff moved through the force main and back down to the gravity, all the way down to the main pump station, if we go into that basin, we're going to find the same thing.
Yeah.
And then when we push it to LTS,
It's removed at Headworks.
Yeah.
And so all that stuff that you see at Headworks is
Right.
what hasn't collected in these stations.
Yeah, every screen, everything comes through. Yeah, so it's a lot. We're flushing a lot in there. So, definitely work to be done, and it needs a lot of preventive maintenance. Any questions for me on any of this?
Did the DOT compensate you in any way?
So they did help us. They helped with the road repair because DOT does road repair. So yes, they did. They did help us. They partnered with us in all the road repair that had to be
Help you
done.
with the,
No, not the cost of digging and repairing the pipes, but they did help us in the cost of backfill and road repair. And some of it, the storm drain was right there at the joint. But you can look at those joints and see we were going to have failures in the near future anyway.
Yeah.
The problem is, we know that existed in front of the Memorial Gardens, and we made that repair. Well, we haven't gotten the section that goes from Memorial Gardens under 24, or from where it goes under 24 at Sonic, all the way to the main pump station, because it follows Cheney Creek all the way to the main pump station. But this line actually comes from TT. So we haven't, which is across from, what is that, Corbin? Where Corbin comes out. So this gravity line actually comes all the way from Corbin, all the way down to the pedestrian bridge, and goes under 24 at Ellis. So it's very likely that we could have some of these similar problems all the way along 24 toward Western, which is what Mike's saying is we know we've got more to do. So we have the upstream part of the basin between TT and the pedestrian bridge, and we have the downstream portion, which is probably the more critical portion at this point, from under 24 at the Sonic area, the Memorial Gardens area, all the way to main pump station.
And obviously, you can't have flow when you go through this process, so is repairing.
That's the problem.
Repairing the next section is going to be the same thing. You're going to have to bypass, or do you have anywhere else to send it?
The great thing is when you hit, the biggest challenge we had here is the first manhole that had problems was the end of the force main, which is what Mike was saying. So when that force main ties into a manhole, then you have to bypass from that point.
Okay.
And there was so much flow, so Ellis does anywhere from 1.2 to 1.5 million gallons a day.
Right.
So you're trying to deal with that in a 5-foot diameter manhole on a bypass pump.
Yeah.
So the idea would be as you get further down, you can pull from 1 or 2 manholes, and it's easier to set up your bypass pumping. Except for when we get to the section under 24, which means we're going to have to figure out how to get sewer from one side of 24 to the other side of 24
Without disrupting traffic?
without disrupting traffic and clean and line that segment.
Right. Then we don't have the great thing we had at the bypass is because that was raised up.
Yeah.
We had stormwater that went under. We could
Yeah.
follow that and not disrupt the traffic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not going to have that once we get on that.
There's one pipe that comes under right there at the Beirut Memorial, but we haven't done any calculations to see how much space we would take up if we ran an 18-inch force main through.
Wow.
And it may be I don't know what size it is, but even at a 48-inch or a 50-inch or a 60-inch, you're taking almost 2 feet in diameter away from it. So
Yeah.
what flooding problems could we create if
Right,
we do that?
do that.
So it'd have to be well-timed.
Yeah. Lucky.
Yeah, some of that.
Wow. What was did y'all handle the bypass? I mean, what did it cost to do that bypass there?
I should know this. I don't know the full total. So we kind of ran it as a turnkey deal. We rented a bypass pump and the force main from United Rentals. United Rentals. And they did it as a turnkey where they did the installation of the bypass pumps and fused all of the force main together for us. And so we didn't own any of that, we rented
Okay.
it. And that turned out to be the easiest and cheapest way to get it done.
Wow.
Now, we were still responsible for obviously making sure the pumps didn't fail and
Monitoring.
there were no spills, and we didn't show you, but while we were under bypass pumping, a car somehow came off the bypass and literally T-boned the guardrail within 10 feet of our pipe that came over the guardrail.
Discharge pipe.
I mean, it was, when I first saw it, I thought yeah. So, there's things like that can happen.
Yeah.
But that ended up going very well. And I think do you remember the total amount for the whole project?
I thought it was two something.
It was, I was thinking it was right around $2 million for all of it. Like including the emergency repair, the bypass pumping, the lining of the manholes, I think we ended up somewhere right around $2 million.
I think the emergency repair was 275 on its own,
Yeah,
and then everything else came into that, so.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
Well, it's a lot of money, but it sounds reasonable, so.
well, it was, for being an
In the
emergency.
scheme of things.
Yeah, for being an emergency, it
That's a lot of work.
definitely
That's a lot of work
was.
that went on over the last 7
Yes.
months. So.
And a lot of credit to a couple of the contractors that we work with. They show up when we call, and they're pretty good about not raking us over the coals.
Right.
So we do appreciate that. We have good relationships.
It was a lot cheaper than having to replace all that pipe, too.
Yes, yes.
Significantly cheaper.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, that was great.
Appreciate it.
Presentation. Thanks, Wally. All right, does anyone have any questions or additional issues that we need to discuss?
Something I mentioned to Wally was about the security, because I've been seeing a lot about, especially with the Iran war, them tapping into water systems and causing disruptions.
Yeah. There was actually a webinar that went out the other day. It was a mandatory webinar. We all jumped on that. We're pretty safe we have firewalls on anything that is open to the internet, but most of our SCADA and Mission and all that stuff is closed. It's closed. So those aren't going to be controlled by there. And the few systems we have that are, what they call internet facing, those are firewalled and protected, and limited access to that. So we don't feel that we're vulnerable in any way. We felt pretty safe about it between the water plant and wastewater.
And the good thing about wastewater is it's monitor only. So they can see it, but you can't control it. It's not
Can't
possible.
send direction to it.
That's right. And one of the safety factors we have, although we have many, one of the safety factors is we have an operator that sits at the desk, and if it's taking control of, the operator still can see everything that happens, because even our remote login is through that location.
So they can't lock us out either.
Yes.
From the manual. So
yeah. So if that is one safety factor. The one place that we do know we need to give attention is some of our PLCs are older. They were put in 2012, and as you know, on any kind of electrical equipment, that's a pretty long service life.
Yeah.
And actually, not knowing this was out there, in the CIP for FY27, we have roughly $300,000 programmed to replace those older controllers anyway. So it just comes at a well time for replacing some of those older components. And we do have, I don't remember exactly, I think it's 2 years out, we have the remaining controllers that were installed a little bit after that 2012 timeframe. So we'll be replacing controllers this year, and then we'll be replacing controllers again in 2 years, unless IT looks at them and says, hey, we need to move that up.
Yeah. So there's no way they can interrupt our water supply?
I'm not going to say no way because I don't want to introduce any challenges to anybody. So, but we're pretty confident that we're as safe as we can be. So, and again, we're staffed 24 hours a day. So that's part of the reason that we're staffed 24 hours a day is that security measure.
Any other discussions, questions?
I just got one question. It's because of the grease report. Said there was a grease spill in June. Where was that at?
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, so we'll just say it was at a private business. It was a grease trap.
Okay.
So
That's all I need.
okay,
I won't.
and it was cleaned up. So, and it doesn't happen very often, but it can happen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Any discussion, comments, questions?
I'm good.
All right. Well, our next meeting is scheduled for 5:30, September 10th, 2026. If there's no other business, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.